Police in Taiwan crack down on gangs after flashy triad dinner parties catch media attention. Southern Taiwan is facing a drought and it's moving up north. Fisheries workers in northern Taiwan protest a fossil fuel project. Plus, find out how Team Taiwan plans to bounce back in a World Baseball Classic after suffering an upset defeat in its first game. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. Taiwan's top police chief has launched a crackdown on criminal gangs. That's after several of the groups made headlines by holding flashy dinner parties at five-star hotels. Stash Butler has the story.
It's quite the welcome at Taipei's five-star Marriott Hotel. More than 100 women wearing traditional qipaos, whose faces have been blurred to protect their identity, greet arriving guests. But they're no ordinary visitors. They're members of Taiwan's biggest gang. The Bamboo Union had their spring dinner on Monday, with videos and photos of the event being posted online. It was an extravagant affair, one that was thought to have cost around $150,000. But it may end up costing them more than just money. The brazen displays of wealth have attracted the attention of the police, who say gangs normally avoid this kind of showy behavior. One officer spoke on the condition of anonymity.
那黑道帮派其实生存有他们的法则，老一辈的黑道角头都知道，要跟警察互敬互谅，给警察面子是生存的前提。
But after the Bamboo Union Party and others in recent days, Taiwan's police chief has ordered a crackdown. Taipei's commissioner announced the move on Wednesday.
从今天开始，我们对于黑帮依附为生的这些的场所或者据点，一定一波一波的扫荡。
Overnight, hundreds of officers raided nightclubs, hostess bars and venues across the country. Police in the northeastern Yilan County arrested at least 20 people, as did officers in New Taipei. It's unclear how many were members of a gang. The crackdown is a sign of a rise in police and gang tensions. But how long it lasts and how effective it can be when Taiwan's largest gang is thought to have 10,000 members, that's another question entirely. Damon Lin and Stash Butler for TaiwanPlus.
For more on Taiwan's organized crime gangs and the police's handling of them, TaiwanPlus's Jeremy Olivier spoke with Taipei-based reporter Brian Hugh.
How big is the issue of organized crime in Taiwan?
I would say it's something that's kind of always there in the background as a background structural issue. There are times in which it becomes a political flashpoint, such as if there is an incident of violent crime in a public place. For example, a police officer gets beaten to death outside of a nightclub, or there's some scandal involving a politician or a celebrity, or there's a large drug bust, that kind of thing. But otherwise, it does happen in the background of society in which gangs are quite deeply rooted.
And what do organized crime units, these gangs like the Bamboo Union, actually do?
So I think a lot is based on protection fees or involvement in some industries, such as construction, in which gangs play the role as enforcers, driving people off of a piece of land if there is development planned there by these companies to increase the value and so forth. But then also the drug trade and so forth, that is also conducted by gangs. Particularly the Bamboo Union gang has been under much more scrutiny in recent years because of the relation with China, that the gang can act as a vector for united front activity, creating connections between Taiwan and China just illegally in some cases, allowing people to circumvent official institutions.
When the police launch these crackdowns, what is it that they're doing? Where do they go?
Often it is these kind of karaoke parlors or these KTV type establishments or these nightclubs and etc., in which there's some kind of sex work going on, and so you do have all these images of women in dresses lined up and so forth. But then it often does seem to be kind of performative, just going through the motions and so forth, because the establishments are there and police claim they're cracking down on dangerous activity there, finding people there that are working illegally or maybe illegal migrants to Taiwan, or if there's drug use going on there and so forth. But otherwise, these establishments are there. And oftentimes then the police can be even accused of working with these establishments who are being paid off and so forth. And so that is sometimes why there's all the more incentive to carry out these inspections to show that, well, that's not going on. The police is actually doing its job and so forth.
That was Brian Hugh of New Bloom magazine speaking with TaiwanPlus reporter Jeremy Olivier. Taiwan is cracking down on online sharing of explicit photos and videos of minors. There's been an increase in a reported number of cases involving exploitative images on the internet. Van Trieste reports on why this problem has grown and what the authorities are doing to try and stop it.
Photos and videos of minors, many explicit, are ending up online in ever greater numbers. Some are even being sold. In this Taiwanese schoolyard, students say classmates taking or sharing inappropriate photos has become a common occurrence.
就是学生之间会有外游的影片，那影片内容是什么？就是一些各种形式的性行为。
就人家问说要不要互传私密照。
The full number of online exploitative images that the authorities have found has not been released yet, but preliminary reports suggest it's on an upward trend. The jump began in 2020, something police say is linked to the COVID-19 pandemic.
因为疫情期间，他手机是有办法比较长时间的使用，甚至是他是在家学习的时候，他接触的这些时间是他自己一个人在面对网络环境，而不是有家长陪同。
There are numerous ways predators have been able to get hold of photos and videos of children, from striking up fake online romances to pretending to be a recruiter for a modeling agency. Sometimes minors receive real money or in-game currencies in exchange. The government is now working to clamp down on this issue. In January, lawmakers passed 4 pieces of legislation which toughened penalties, added protections for victims, and banned exploitative images from being shared under the criminal code.
违反他人意愿的方式取得儿少影像，这个部分是最重的，他已经可以判到7年以上的有期徒刑，而且实务上他是可以累加他的这个罪责的，所以7年以上有期徒刑是个什么样的概念？贩卖第1级毒品海洛因就是7年以上有期徒刑。
Victims can now get help from social workers, and websites that fail to remove flagged content can be blocked in Taiwan. Keeping victims' identities secret, a rule introduced in Taipei 3 years ago, was recently implemented across the country. Taipei police say this approach could make a major difference.
其实这一次的一个修法内容，我们台北市政府警察局从109年开始都已经在做了。那其实它最大的影响是这个被害人的一个身份代号，因为这类型的一个案件，被害人对他来讲是非常的容易很敏感，而且很容易受伤。
2 months on since the laws were passed, it's still too early to reach any conclusions about how big a difference such reforms have made. But the authorities believe they have found one formula that will help to stamp out a growing problem. Klein Wang and Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
The Justice Ministry is working to ban what it calls abusive punishments for children. This includes verbal as well as physical abuse. Taiwan's civil code allows parents to punish their children, quote, within the limit of necessity. But the Justice Ministry says it's time to bring Taiwan's laws in line with the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. That treaty says no child should face degrading treatment. An amendment in works will limit punishments like standing and writing lines. It would also ban verbal insults entirely. Violators may face fines and even lose custody of children in severe cases. Advocates of the change say most punishments only have a temporary effect on children's behavior, but some worry the law may make parenting difficult.
你如果拿掉惩戒权，就是代表他不能去适当更严格的管教或者有纪律的管教。小朋友很聪明的，他也会告诉你，你不能管我了啊，那你父母怎么办？
The Dutch government has announced new export restrictions on microchip technology sales, citing security concerns. The proposed rules would include machines made by ASML, one of the most important microchip firms in the world. The proposal would restrict the sale of advanced machines that are critical to chip production. ASML is the sole supplier of these devices. The announcement doesn't specifically mention China, but it's widely seen as targeting Beijing. China's foreign ministry has said it opposes the plan for limiting normal economic and trade exchanges. The U.S. recently lobbied allies to follow in its footsteps in banning sales of advanced technology to China. Rainfall in southern Taiwan hit a 30-year low in 2022. That's affecting water supplies in central and western Taiwan. And as Bing Wang reports, officials are coming up with measures to conserve water while Taiwan waits for spring rains.
This is the Liyutown Reservoir, located in the western county of Miaoli. It supplies water to much of the country's central regions. Taiwan is in the middle of a drought. Rainfall in southern Taiwan was at a 30-year low last year, and this lack of rain is also affecting water supplies in central Taiwan. The reservoir can hold almost 60 million metric tons of water. It's currently half full, but over 500,000 tons of water are still being used every day. Experts say central Taiwan would need to depend on rainfall this spring to replenish its reservoirs.
最近没有下雨，没有降雨的情形，除去大雨进来的水量，所以目前水位是持续下降中。
Because of the lack of rain, cities in Taiwan have already begun water-saving measures. That includes a 5% water reduction for the country's largest industrial users. Here in northern Taiwan, the water supply is more stable, but as you can see, it's sunny skies everywhere, and it hasn't rained in several weeks. For now, the government is confident it will be able to keep water supplies stable.
东部地区各个水库的蓄水，主要水库的蓄水率都在7成以上。那北部地区因为去年的这个降雨比较丰沛，水库的水量都还维持在蛮高的。
Water is being diverted from lakes into reservoirs in central Taiwan to try and head off a crisis before it begins. But with no rain forecast anytime soon, things are likely to get worse before they get better. Chen and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
Fisheries in northern Taiwan are protesting the construction of a fossil fuel gas terminal off the country's coast. They say the development is affecting fish numbers, which is impacting the local workers' livelihood. Sally Jensen reports.
I want to live. This was the message written on a banner unfurled by fishery workers in Taoyuan in the north of Taiwan on Wednesday. These workers are worried they will lose their livelihoods over the construction of a new gas terminal. They say the project is damaging the habitat of one of their main sources of income, the yellow croaker fish.
之前有做3年的评测，而且只是说笼统的讲说都没有吸到什么鱼苗，没有渔获。我们渔民就给我们3个月就好了，不要说3年了。3个月我们实地去看他们吸取的渔获鱼苗是多少。
The gas terminal is being built by the CPC Corporation, a state-owned fossil fuel company and one of the biggest names in Taiwan's plastics industry. Taiwan is currently trying to move away from polluting fossil fuels to keep in line with international carbon emissions reductions goals. To reduce the amount of coal and oil in Taiwan's energy mix, CPC is now expanding its gas portfolio. So-called natural gas is often seen as a cleaner energy source than coal or oil as it emits less carbon dioxide. But its planet-warming methane emissions are still extremely high.
天然气它相对于燃煤是它的排放跟空污的排放，但是它毕竟还是火力发电，那还是会造成不少的排放。
This is not the first time the CPC's plans for its new gas plant have encountered backlash. In 2020, conservationists protested about its impact on nearby algal reefs. Now, fisheries workers and environmentalists alike are demanding more consultation with the developers.
你要施工你要跟这些渔民团体而且这个沟通种种都有明文的规定在这里。
But experts say that under its new climate law, Taiwan's energy transition is likely to cause more conflicts like this.
We need a lot of trust between government, developers, and local citizens. It's not always easy. There has been many protests. I expect that we will see more of that in the years to come.
CPC has sent intermediaries to speak with Taoyuan's fishery workers, but so far no agreement has been reached.
工业区跟工业港开发的范围，它并没有超过民国90几年，我们已经实行过渔业权补偿的范围，全部是在它的范围之内，并没有扩大所以整个渔业权的补偿，中油公司已经完成了
This is not the first instance of Taiwan's big energy transition clashing with local industries. These fishery workers are just the latest in a growing number of people who worry that Taiwan's new gas terminals could be a major threat to their livelihoods. Andy Sher and Sally Jensen for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, a story from Japan about new hope after the country's worst nuclear accident over a decade ago.
Thanks for watching Taiwan Plus. For more great stories from Taiwan and around the world, please download the Taiwan Plus app.
Welcome back. You're watching Taiwan Plus News. In mid-January 2024, people across Taiwan will go to the polls to choose the country's next president and lawmakers. With just over 9 months to go before the election, Eric Gao reports on how the two main political parties have started preparing for the upcoming races.
Who is going to lead Taiwan? That's what voters will decide early next year when they cast their ballots for the next president and for legislators. While there are still over 300 days until then, the country's two biggest political parties have already begun their nomination processes. The ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, has formed its campaign strategy task force. The group is already urging the party's sitting city and county council members not to abandon their posts in order to run for legislative seats.
恐有负选民之托，影响社会观感，中执会做成不建议现任议员参与本次立委选举。
DPP presidential hopefuls will be able to pick up registration forms starting next Monday, and after that, registration for the party's primaries will begin the following Friday. Meanwhile, the main opposition Kuomintang, or KMT, started accepting registrations on Tuesday. They'll form their strategy task force next week to decide how the primaries will be conducted. Rumors have been swirling that party chief Eric Zhu will put himself forward to run for president, but he says the nomination process will be fair and above board.
请大家不要相信任何的谣言，更不可以散布任何的谣言。我作为党主席，从头到尾都是坚持无私无我，没有任何个人的考量。
It'll still be some time before either party's candidates are confirmed. But once that happens, the race for 2024 will truly be underway. Howard Zong and Eric Gao for Taiwan Plus.
Georgia has dropped a controversial bill that would have required certain organizations to register as foreign agents. The country's government decided to scrap the bill after 2 straight days of protest that at times turned violent. Tens of thousands of people joined those rallies. Some clashed with police who used tear gas to disperse the protesters. Under the law, any organization that receives more than 20% of its funding from abroad would be labeled as a foreign agent. But protesters say this is modeled on a similar law in Russia. Critics say the Russian law has been used to suppress NGOs and media outlets. Even Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky weighed in. He thanked the protesters for raising the Ukrainian flag and wished them democratic success. Rallies over a deadly train crash in Greece have turned violent as tens of thousands of people took to the streets on Wednesday. Marches in the capital city Athens and the northern city of Thessaloniki erupted into clashes between protesters and police. Authorities used stun guns and tear gas against the crowd. Some of the more than 60,000 protesters threw rocks and Molotov cocktails. Greece's leadership has been put on a defensive since the train disaster in late February, which killed 57 people. The tragedy has brought to light issues with the country's rail network, such as poor quality equipment and a shortage of workers. Dozens of people are reporting feeling ill following a massive spill off the coast of islands in the Philippines. An oil tanker that was carrying 800,000 liters of industrial fuel oil sank near the central island of Mindoro last week. Oil has been detected in more than 60 nearby fishing villages, leaving layers of black sludge. People living near the spill and cleanup workers have reported feeling sick with cramps, vomiting, and dizziness. A new venture in Japan is turning rice contaminated by the country's worst nuclear accident into a low-carbon, plastic-like material. It's not only giving crops affected by the 2011 Fukushima disaster a new purpose, but it's also helping local farmers. Joyce Sung has the story.
These charming food containers and sets of cutleries are used in chain restaurants all over Japan. They're even sold as popular souvenirs at the country's international airports. But more importantly, these seemingly common items have also brought life-changing hope to a struggling small town. This is Jinichi Abe. He is watching excavators dig up the soil on his rice field, soil that is still poisoned by Japan's worst nuclear accident that happened over a decade ago. Abe is from Nami, a town in Fukushima Prefecture that sits only 4 kilometers from the site of the area's deadly nuclear meltdown. Japan will mark the 12th anniversary of the infamous disaster on Saturday. Since the accident, many local farmers like Abe haven't been able to sell their crops as food because of health concerns. On a Friday afternoon in 2011, the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in Japan hit the country's east coast. It triggered a massive tsunami that killed thousands and wiped entire towns off the map. At the Fukushima nuclear power plant, the gigantic waves swept in and flooded the reactors. This caused one of the worst nuclear accidents in history, second only to Chernobyl.
広く社会の皆様に大変なご不安、ご心配とご迷惑をおかけしておりますことに対し、心から深くお詫び申し上げます。
In present-day Nami, around 80% of the town's land is still off limits. Fewer than 2,000 people still live there, compared to more than 10 times that number before the disaster. But a sign of recovery has Jinichi Abe feeling renewed hope for the area. Last November, Tokyo-based firm Biomass Resin opened a factory in Nami, with a vision to repurpose locally grown rice like Abe's.
これがもともとプラスチックの材料になる石油系の樹脂です。で、これがお米です。で、この石油系の樹脂とお米を混ぜ合わせて、我々の工場ではこういったライスレジンというペレットを作っています。
This rice resin is taken and turned into low-carbon plastic-like material to be used by major firms across Japan, and can be made into everyday items like this brightly colored set of cutlery, cups, and toothbrushes. By using rice, companies can cut down on the petroleum used to make products and lower their reliance on fossil fuels. Growing more rice in Nami also reduces overall atmospheric carbon dioxide.
少しでもプラスチック廃プラに協力できたらいいなという。それともう一つは波町復興のためにね、少しでも役立ちたいなということで、みんなと相談しながら、バイオマスと共にやろうということにしたんです。これから波町も何人かかるかは分かりませんが、良くなると思います。
8 companies have invested in Nami since 2017. Biomass Resin also plans to expand and buy more of Abe's rice in the next year. So with freshly cleared fields, a new beginning could be on the horizon for this small Japanese town. Kamashu and Joyce Chen for TaiwanPlus.
Team Taiwan suffered an upset loss to Panama in its first game at the 2023 World Baseball Classic. And as Leslie Liao reports, one day later, the team is back at practice to try and bounce back in a competition.
One day after Taiwan lost its first game in the 2023 World Baseball Classic against Panama, the team has no game scheduled in the competition. But it's getting back to work practicing at National Taiwan University of Sport for its next matchups against Italy, the Netherlands, and Cuba. It's a hot sunny day in Taichung, and Team Taiwan's players seem to be in good spirits. Contrary to what one might think, the first sport they play at practice isn't baseball. It's some kind of foot volleyball, and they're having a great time. This seems to be a team-building exercise. At the post-game press conference, head coach Ling Yueping said pitching was Taiwan's Achilles heel in its first game against Panama.
在失分后，确实在投手的控球上是最大的一个失败的因素。
After a night of rest, it seems Ling still thought the same way.
那既然昨天发生了，那 也希望我们的投手可以赶快去调整，在这3场比赛中，再更勇敢的去面对。
Even though Taiwan lost its first game in the WBC, its players like first game starting pitcher Hu Ziwei are learning from the experience.
看起来就是外国球队很明确，就是我在好球队内我才会去做攻击，基本上我不会轻易乱挥棒这样。
One area where Taiwan did not struggle in its game against Panama was offense. Infielder Wu Nianting hit the first home run of the 2023 World Baseball Classic.
状况也不错，看球的那种感觉都很好，所以我觉得打出来真的蛮开心的。
Since Team Taiwan is playing at home, the pressure is on to perform, but they seem ready to rise to the challenge.
当然我们还没有放弃，那后面的比赛还有3场，那就是一场一场把它拿下来。
And from this practice session, one thing is clear: they have not let this early loss bring them down.
Let's go Taiwan with the face!
Patrick Sun and Leslie Liao at National Taiwan University of Sport for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. Take care and see you next time.